The stories we pen, read, or narrate to one another are quite like streams flowing across diverse terrains of life, inherently and indispensably connected by the broad features of their making. More often than not, these stories depict slices of life in an array of situational contexts, experienced, observed, or imagined, with a measure of relatability and evocativeness that the reading gentry finds engrossing in different ways and to varying extents. Moreover, most of the stories have a bunch of characters who, like us, act in disparate conditions of existence which they negotiate with and respond in different ways. The actions performed by them constitute the plots, subplots, and counterplots of the stories, leading to the specific ends planned by their authors. It is ironical, however, that notwithstanding these generic similarities, our stories are actually read and appreciated more for the ways in which they differ than for the ways in which they resemble one another. This anthology of 16 engaging stories, aptly titled Songs of a Mermaid, Tales of Urban Women, tells us why the perception of divergent tools, articulated by the inherent patterns of meaning employed in them to achieve identical ends, is often so pivotal to our understanding and appreciation of the literary narratives that are conceptualized and brought out together as singular works of creative collaboration. As the fruit of a highly calibrated collaboration, Songs of a Mermaid, Tales of Urban Women stands out by showcasing multiple shades of diversity in terms of storyline, plot structure, diction, narrative technique, and style of expression. Each story in this collection leaves an impact on the reader with its nearly impeccable craft, characterization, treatment, and execution of plot, despite the fact that the textural features are apparently the same in all the stories. I think the sustenance of the basic textural features throughout the anthology is by no means a limitation of the anthology, nor does it show the contributors' reluctance to experimentation. Instead, it seems to be only a conscious strategy adopted by the contributors to broaden the scope to be more experimental on the structural front and dedicate their energy and attention to making their output more effortlessly relatable to the empathetic reading public and sensitive literati. Gender relations define the thematic core of all the stories. As the title of the anthology suggests, all the stories have female protagonists, some of which are the first-person narrators, except in The Veil and the Clay Doll, the first and the last stories of the collection respectively. Gender relations primarily involve females and males of the same generation. In two of the stories, The Siren's Refrain and Love in Times of Tsunami, there is a surreal twist to the plot, as the female protagonists in them are not real-life human females but mermaids, the mythological sea-dwelling creatures who are shown to have adapted themselves to the human ways of living, feeling, and behaving while living with the rescuing human males. Conflict between the opposite genders in an avowedly patriarchal context is at the heart of the female-male relationship dealt with in many stories. At times, as you may notice in stories like What Did Nargis Wish For? Because You Are Mine, and Clipped Breath, this conflict is direct and palpable, assuming openly violent proportions. In these two stories, the haplessness of the female protagonist seems to be more glaringly linked to the monstrously abusive male ego that demands their complete and unconditional subjugation in all situations. The sense of loss is too prolonged and deep-seated in their case to make them realize that they can stay alive only by either silently accepting their fate of unconditional subjugation or retaliate to break themselves free from the clutches of the monster. Unlike these stories, the Snow Globe presents gender conflict in a more subdued way, where the tangible experience of physical violence is subtly replaced by the protagonist's perception of silent trauma and torture she is subjected to, followed by a sense of deracination and emptiness. A Doctor's Dilemma and The Veil are the two stories in which the protagonist's sense of guilt defines the limits of gender relations. The two stories are completely different in the setting and motives. In the second case, the protagonist's guilt is a long-guarded secret which she discloses to her daughter-in-law. It indicates gender relation on an intergenerational plane in a traditional social setup. In A Doctor's Dilemma, the guilt is associated with a woman who is a modern, well-educated person capable of exercising her freedom of choice. Melancholy is the most striking emotional strand that runs through most of the stories. Even in the stories without a focus on gender conflict, melancholy seems to be pervasive, albeit implied on several occasions. In stories like Oceans Apart and The Muse in My Heart I Bore, which are about the relationship of love rather than conflict and incompatibility, melancholy remains the sole perceptible emotion in the end, marked by some unforeseen tragedies. Unlike these stories, as well as the two surreal stories of man-mermaid romance, where melancholy primarily shapes the ends, The Dawning Sky presents an extremely gloomy picture of betrayal and bestiality, attributed to unapologetically supercilious and diabolical males victimizing hapless and credulous females. The protagonist's melancholy with a dash of optimism to overcome a disturbing past is noticeable throughout the story that employs the flashback technique to reach the end. The Clay Doll is another story that brings melancholy to a high scale, culminating in the tragic murder of one of the two female protagonists caused by superstition and bigotry prevailing in a male-dominated social system. Gender relations are again the most striking aspect of the narrative, and they guide the actions throughout the story. The Hidden Secret, End of the Shift, Raison d'etre of the Vibrant Contender, and Against My Sweat and Blood are the other stories in the collection that are remarkable for slightly different reasons. To me, these four stories have a somewhat unconventional brilliance that make them significant. The Hidden Secret and Raison d'etre of the Vibrant Contender are stories where we clearly hear the voice of strong and decisive women who can fight against all odds and choose to act according to their will without caring a dime for patriarchal social norms and stereotyped gender relationships. In The Hidden Secret, for instance, the female protagonist shows the determination to free herself and many others from the fear of a monster to whom she is unfortunately betrothed. In Raison d'etre of the Vibrant Contender, the female protagonist, a promising sportswoman, stands up determinedly against social stereotypes and successfully counters the humiliation heaped upon her. This is the only story where the protagonist questions the traditional gender relations and ends up choosing another female as her life partner. My Sweat and Blood and End of the Shift are the two Chekhovian pieces that capture slices of life involving their protagonists written in conservational style. Both of them have realistic urban settings. They make their plots thoroughly relatable. Against My Sweat and Blood is the story of an estranged woman fighting a prolonged legal battle with her husband, while End of Shift captures some moments in the life of a saleswoman and her unexpected encounter with a strange customer. So this was the prelude or preface I was reading, or the brilliant foreword, profound foreword written by the editor of this book, Deepak K Choudhary Sir. And this is the book Songs of a Mermaid, Tales of Urban Women, with 16 short stories. And I have decided to do the excerpt reading series from this book soon. And then I would be reading out 3 pages of each of the stories. And if any writer from this book wishes to do this kind of excerpt reading series for this book, they are welcome to do so, and you can connect with me through the mail ID, or maybe you can inbox me. And also a very profound foreword that has been written by the editor. First of all, there are 16 stories by 16 women writers, including me, and the editor is a male editor who really went through all kind of stories that talks about patriarchy, talks about feminism, talks about gender abusiveness, talks about male dominance, and still he went through all the stories unbiased and completely being judgmental or being at any point of time be feeling upset or anything. He was completely fair to his work, and that is the editorial skill I would like to bow my head towards, because he is a great, not only a great editor but an amazing writer, and he has edited this book flawlessly. I'm sure you all would agree, and all the stories are really interesting. They're all women stories because there was a theme that was given, and I have already mentioned why I have decided, or I have chosen this title, Songs of a Mermaid, in my earlier video, so you can get to that video and know the reasons. But still I'm giving out a bit that Songs of a Mermaid basically is here talking about women, their lives, their struggles, their challenges as they face in the sea of life. And all the stories are ordinary, mundane, and some were also exceptional, and some were also imaginative, fantasy based, where two or three of the writers have chosen to talk about mermaids in a very literal way. So I thought that with the preface reading, I can begin with the series of my excerpt reading that I usually do for my channel, and you can subscribe to that channel as well, and also do subscribe to Chrysanthemum Chronicles official channel, for which I'm making this video. And I'm enjoying this journey being a publisher now, so I will also request all the readers out there that pick this book up from Amazon.in today and enjoy reading it. It will be soon available through Flipkart as well, and also in its Kindle version. So for more updates, also you can subscribe to the website's mailing list, so that you stay updated about all the updates. You can also join the group if you're a writer or even if you're a reader. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to grab this book. And it has been edited by the editor Deepak K Choudhary Sir, and all the authors you can meet on the front cover, inside part itself. They're all here, so you can enjoy reading this book, and also don't forget to share your feedback. So I will see you around with more of my videos, my excerpt reading series, which I'm going to start from my channel. You can also subscribe to that one. So have a great time all. Bye and take care, and do check out some of our books and support me as a woman entrepreneur and a publisher. Bye all. Take care.